I lived in a predominantly white town, and it was a lot higher class status than I was. So it was very interesting going to school with just a lot of kids that didn't look like me. So I think there was just this instinct to stand out, and you could go either way. You could kind of shelter yourself and hide, or you could stand out and kind of make yourself known. And so I guess I kind of chose that path.
That's Tobey Lynn. I'm Kara Duffy, and this is the Powerful Ladies podcast. Welcome to the Powerful Ladies podcast.
Hello. I wasn't sure if you were going to say more. Hello.
That's it. Yeah. I'm excited to talk to you today. Let's jump right in and tell everyone your name, where you are in the world, and what you're up to.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, I'm Tobey Lynn. I am currently in Orange County studying my last year at Chapman University as a senior. And what am I up to? I'm trying to graduate and get out of here. But other than that, I'm just pursuing my music and my writing and finishing up my degree in TV writing, which is really exciting.
Yeah. You're doing so many things. How do you prioritize them? How do you make it all work and also be trying to finish up school at the same time?
It's a lot. I always say this, but I hang on to my Google Calendar like it's my lifeline because it is. And I think prioritizing creatively, I think it's not really a matter of prioritizing things. It's more just I have to do these creative things in order to live and feel kind of like my truest self, I guess, as cheesy as it is. But music and writing and all that kind of stuff kind of just feels like something I have to do in order to just get everything out and feel like I'm good and I'm stable. Yeah.
I think when you're a creative, there's often many areas that you're exploring.
Mm-hmm.
Of all the things you're doing, is there one that's your favorite or one that you think you're going to dedicate more time to?
Yeah, that's a good question. I always tell this story that when I was 4 years old, I think High School Musical came out in 2006. And that was immediately, I was like, I'm going to be Gabriela Montez. This is the thing I'm doing. And so my mom put me into dance lessons when I was 5, I think. And so I've been dancing ever since then. And then I started singing. And music has just kind of always been that one thing that it's untouchable, kind of no one else can say anything about it or say maybe you should think about something else or let's have a plan B. Music has always truly been the thing. And I think I've stuck to that and made 5-year-old Toby really proud, hopefully, and just really pursued that. So that is kind of the main thing. But I think there's other avenues I love TV writing, obviously, because I'm studying it at school, but I love Donald Glover. I think he has the career of my dreams. So if I could make music, write TV, do all sorts of things. He has a boba shop now, just random I think just anything and everything, but music has always kind of been the driving force to get me where I am now.
I also think he's incredible. Have you been watching Mr. and Mrs. Smith?
Oh my gosh. I think I finished it in 2 or 3 days. I was crying at the end. It was so good. So well done.
I really like that he's kind of taken over a space where he gets to make his own rules.
Mm-hmm. That's the one thing too about it. He just does whatever he wants, and it's well done too. It's not I don't know. There's no oh, it's kind of good. Everything he makes is so he goes at it full force. So I admire that.
We've been doing this podcast since 2019.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And we've had Powerful Ladies as an organization and company since 2016. And still to this day, I call women and ask them to be a guest or come to one of our events. And they'll say, I'm not powerful. I'm not ready yet. I'm not old enough yet. I haven't done the things yet. And yet here you are being like, hell yeah, I'm coming on. So how do you see that differently, and what made you be a yes, and what can those women learn from you?
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think I was talking to my dad the other day, and I was like, my boyfriend was like, how long has Toby been sassy for? Because she's got an attitude. And my dad was like, ever since she could talk. So I think like it's in my nature too, but I think also like I of course was kind of a little bit more in my shell, especially growing up, and just I lived in a predominantly white town, and it was a lot higher class status than I was. So it was very interesting going to school with just a lot of kids that didn't look like me. So I think there was just this instinct to stand out and you could go either way. You could kind of shelter yourself and hide, or you could stand out and kind of make yourself known. And so I guess I kind of chose that path, and I think it's hopefully the better path, and I think it's helped me build a lot of confidence. And yeah, hopefully I just hope to like with my music to inspire other girls that look like me because that's kind of the whole thing with High School Musical, like seeing Vanessa Hudgens, that was the first time I've ever seen a Filipina singer and dancer, and I was like, "Oh my gosh." Even though I was 4 years old, it's subconsciously I'm like that. She kind of looks like me. So I think yeah, that's just kind of what pushes me to be confident.
Have you heard of Filipinas on the Rise?
No, what is that?
It's a community and organization created by a client of mine, Crystal Fabella,
Mhm.
and it's bringing Filipino women together to embrace all the parts that they are and
That's so
really to see
awesome.
each other. It started off as like a book club reading from Filipina authors,
Mhm.
and
That's
she has a podcast now. Highly recommend you pitch yourself.
yeah.
But it's like it's a community that has dealt with from a nation perspective the colonialism and the shifting history, and then a blending of so many ways with the US. And there's so many Filipina women in particular all over the world,
Mhm.
and she really saw an opportunity to reclaim it and shift what it means to be Filipina for how the women in the group were going to define it, because just like any other culture, there's unsaid and said rules, and there's wanting to know the history, wanting to break some of the rules, wanting to figure it out and not be limited by that one demographic component.
Yes, totally. That's so awesome. I will have to check that out for sure.
Yeah, absolutely do. As you are finding your voice in music,
Mhm.
what are your inspirations and who do you admire beyond Donald?
Yes. Oh my goodness. I love Olivia Rodrigo, of course. She is like the blueprint for so much of the things that I do. I've loved her ever since I was like watching Disney Channel. She's amazing. I love Biba Doobie. They're both Filipina, so that's always like such a nice stepping stone to have and inspiration to have. I love Frank Ocean. I think I'm a big lyrics person and I love the way that he writes songs, and there's no other person that will say like such simple things through such complex lyrics. I'm like such a nerd with that kind of stuff. I love Frank Ocean, of course, love Donald Glover, but a lot of like the pop punk girls like bringing back pop. I think that's so fun, and I love Sabrina Carpenter. There's so many. There's so many. Love Taylor Swift. All of those, all the girlies.
Mm. Have you listened to the whole new album?
Oh my gosh, I haven't. I've heard a few. It's so overwhelming for me because there's so much new music coming out, and I'm like, I can't keep up with everything. I did get to go to the Eras tour though last summer, which was a crazy experience. She's insane in all the good ways.
The group right now that I can't listen to enough is Royal Otis.
Oh, I've never heard of them.
It's Royal, ROY with an EL. It's two guys from Australia. Everyone's losing their mind on TikTok because they did a cover of Linger by the Cranberries.
Mhm.
But the cover that I like even more is the Murder on the Dance Floor one.
Oh, so good.
So good. But they have the reason that I fell in love with them was a song called Oysters in My Pocket.
Mhm.
It's just so ridiculous as a concept that like it's a great song, and I just am laughing the entire time because it's just a reminder that if you combine the right lyrics and melody, you can literally sing about anything.
Anything. Yeah, totally. I love that. I'll have to check them out too.
Mhm. Navigating a traditional kind of college experience isn't what a lot of singers, writers, creatives have done. So, was it important for you to have a traditional degree, and why?
Yeah. I grew up as a first gen student, so I think my parents did go to college. They just weren't able to finish their degrees, whatever it was, thesis, whatever, all the loose ends they have to do. which I'm finally understanding now because I'm a senior. I'm like, there's just so much happening. But I have two older siblings, and they're like way older than me. I'm the baby. My sister like has a child and a husband and everything, so she's in her 30s. My brother's also in his 30s. So kind of being the baby, I just really watch them. I admire them so much, and they inspired me so much too in music. So they also went to four-year universities, and I was like, this is just something I want to do. I think I've also always been a pretty academically I like school, I guess is the short term.
Me
But
too.
yeah, school's fun. I like the structure and I think it pushes me. And so I kind of always knew that I wanted to go to a school. And I was so happy to find Chapman because it is like that smaller community and you can have smaller classes and all my professors know me by my name. And I think that's such a rare thing, especially with the bigger universities. And I never wanted to study music because I just knew I wouldn't I would maybe fall out of love with it just because it was something, like I
Mhm.
said, like so untouchable and like so special to me. So I had a YouTube channel since I was 10 and I always loved editing videos, making videos, doing silly little vlogs. So I decided to pursue TV writing and I think I'm really happy with that choice. And now that I'm literally done in 2 weeks, it's just really crazy to look back at. So it's insane.
Do you know where you're headed after these 2 weeks? Are you still like, we'll figure it out?
I work at a summer camp. I've worked at a summer camp for like the last 3 years. I have that as my backup right now. I've been interviewing at some other places, like some television studios and some music internships. So I'm just waiting to hear back. So fingers crossed. But I kind of like the way that things are up in the air. I think
Mhm.
that this is like one of the only times in my life when things are going to be this up in the air and I really don't know what I'm doing. So I'm trying to embrace it, even though it's obviously really scary, but I feel comfort knowing that everyone else around me feels the same way.
I think it might be an ongoing feeling. I
Yeah,
don't.
exactly.
Every time we think we know we have things under control, there's usually a
Mhm.
curveball where you're like,
Yep.
just kidding, just kidding.
Mhm.
Um, we ask everyone in this podcast how you would define the words powerful and ladies, and if their definitions change when they're next to each other. So, how would you define them?
Ooh. First separately and then together or okay. Okay, I need to think on this. Hmm. I think when I initially think of powerful, I think of standing up for yourself and speaking out, or at least knowing what you want, and kind of like I imagine like me with my feet in the ground, like really knowing exactly what I want. Ladies, I don't know. When I think of myself as a lady, I think I kind of also associate it with powerful, I think, which is a good thing. But I also kind of picture like the gentleness and like care and poise. I think that's a good word. When I think of ladies, I think of poise and just kind of just so much care and attention to a lot of things and very like detail oriented. Together, I don't know if they change. To me, I think I have a good definition of ladies that every lady I've ever met is pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're in a unique time where feminism and women rights are kind of all over the media right now.
Mhm.
People for, people against, everyone's opinions. And the whole thing with like man versus bear in the woods just is running around on the internet,
Oh my gosh.
which I'm glad that it took something that extreme for people to like get it. Fine. But how do you think your generation is looking at feminism, and is it feeling optimistic? Do you feel like we're going backwards? Like, how's it occurring to you?
I think well, that's a loaded question because I'll explain later, but I think um I think there's so many moments where I am so hopeful about it in the way that I perceive myself and like perceive other women, but I think from a societal standpoint there's so many moments where I'm like I'm never going to win, aren't I? Like it's going to be like this. And I had an incident with I'm making a senior thesis TV show for my senior year and it's called White Boy of the Week and I made it with one of my best friends Coco. She's another Asian writer and we both wrote it about kind of the way that white men perceive Asian women and Asian fetishization and like all the racial stereotypes that we've faced. And we've been working on it since November and it screens next week. and the dean of our school wants us to change the name and take out like a bunch of things and is essentially censoring us. And so I think there are those moments where I'm like, as an Asian woman, I'm like, this is just gonna keep happening to me. And I think that's when I kind of start to lose my spark and lose my hope. In when it's related to the entertainment industry, I think there's still a really long way to go just because of the things that I've experienced this past week. And I think that's definitely a wake-up call, but I know that there's hope and I know that there's like a space for us to move forward, but I go back and forth. I teeter on it a lot, which kind of sucks, but
Why do you think they're asking you to censor it?
I think it's more about reputation and less of what the content of what we actually made. Because when you look at the script and you look at what we made, it's a very beautiful love story about this Filipina girl trying to find a white boy to like piss off her mom. Basically, that's what it is, and they end up falling in love. So that's the premise of it. But I guess when you hear it from an outside standpoint, you hear white boy of the week, you're like, that could be really offensive. But I think when you really look inward, there's a lot more going on there. So I think that's kind of what's upsetting us a lot. But
Mm-hmm.
it's been a thing for sure this past week.
Well, and this episode will be coming out in a much later than when we're recording it right
Mhm.
now, but we're in the thick of the campus protests.
Yes, that too. Oh my gosh.
And I don't always know what to say about it because there are so many sides that are happening, but how freedom of speech is being treated and how the universities are reacting, I'm actually really surprised by.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've been in school, and the school I went to is very liberal, very international.
Hmm.
And I'm just caught off guard that this seems pretty simple, but it's not being treated that way at all.
Yeah. And I've been seeing the extent of it on like TikTok and also on my own campus. I was walking around this morning, like reading all the posters and reading the chalk on the ground, and it's all very conflicting and it's interesting for sure.
Do you feel like there are some students who are really clear on their position and others who don't really know? Or do you feel like most people have an opinion?
I think it depends on the college campus because I have had some friends who are very outspoken about it from different schools, and I think coming from Chapman, which is a predominantly white school and also a very rich school, I think a lot of those things just tend to go over people's heads and not in a way
Mm-hmm.
where they're trying to offend anyone. It just kind of happens because that's their upbringing. So I think, but of course, there's still a lot of diversity at Chapman. So I think it's kind of a mixed bag. It's interesting because you'll see people not in like our Starbucks on campus is totally empty. It's a very interesting atmosphere, and I think it's a very rare and special time because I've just never witnessed something like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We also ask everybody on the podcast where you put yourself on the Powerful 80s scale. So if 0 is an average everyday human and 10 is the most powerful lady you can imagine, where would you put yourself on that scale today and on an average day?
Today, hmm. If I'm honest, I wasn't feeling too powerful today. I'm about to get my period. It's one of those days where you're just like, not feeling it. Maybe like I'll put myself in the middle today, like a 5. But I feel like on an average day, I'm pretty feeling pretty powerful. So maybe like a 7 or a 7.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of conversations also right now about how different the generations are. I kind of call BS on it, but there's a lot of conflict of like what is Gen Z versus millennials versus
Right.
boomers versus is it Gen Alpha?
Yeah.
And like what like do you agree, disagree? Like what are you seeing from your perspective?
Yeah. That's interesting because I feel like a lot of it comes from maybe like disagreeing with your parents or kind of like the I don't know, the separation and feeling like you guys are really two different generations. But I've gotten along with my parents for like all of my life and they're like the coolest people I know, which is so nerdy and silly, but I think it's a good thing that I really get along with my parents. Um, as far as, like, the millennial thing, I think a lot of it is, like, a meme kind of, just, like, to kind of pick fun and just make fun of each other. Because I see a
Mhm.
lot of TikToks of millennials and people calling Taylor Swift a millennial. It's so funny. But I think, like, from a serious standpoint, I don't see too much of a difference, and I think we're all the same in a lot of ways, despite our age, for sure.
Yeah. What do you wish older people knew? Like, what do you think they're getting wrong?
What are they getting wrong? Oh gosh. I think sometimes the pronoun thing is really hard for them to swallow. I think sometimes I'm like, "Wow, this is being made into such a big deal. These old people don't understand how to." Even sometimes, I don't know, just sometimes with parents or, like, teachers even, you're just kinda like, "It's not that hard to integrate into your speech." I feel like it's pretty simple. But, there's people in my generation too that don't understand it and don't support it, which is silly because we all have pronouns. So, I think that would probably be my main thing.
Mhm. When you imagine 5 years from now, what are you hoping your life has, and what are you doing?
How old would I be? 27. Oh my god. Oh my gosh. I always say I wanna be a pop star. I would love to go on tour. That is, like, my biggest dream, and I've been lucky enough to do a lot of really fun shows, but something about the idea of tour is so glamorous to me, and I'm sure it's not as glamorous in real life, but I think I would embrace it and really love it. I would love oh my gosh, I want a dog. On a smaller scale, I would love a dog, um, and kind of just the freedom to make anything. I would love also all the people that I love to stay in my life, but I think creative freedom is, like, a huge thing. I would love to, like, have budgets to make things that I want and to have people listening and people supporting. Yeah.
No big deal.
Yeah, no big deal. The dog.
What do you do to maintain your health and wellness, your sanity? Like, what kind of routines or rituals do you have that are just for you?
Ooh, I like that question. I love an everything shower. Everyone talks about those. I love those. I love that it's, like, kind of just such a girly thing too. I love all the little girly things and embracing them. I love doing my skincare routine. I love making my little breakfast in the morning. There's so many things. I love getting, like, a beverage always. Like, I love getting a drink, and I think kind of more on the more serious side, I love going to therapy. I think that's, like, such a thing that I had such a stigma around for so long, especially, like, in my teenage years, but going to that and having the resources at school, which is so awesome to have them for free, and I've been, like, seeing the same therapist for, I think, around, like, 2.5 years, which is a pretty solid amount of time, so I think just to have, like, that kind of stability is so cool and needs to be talked about more for sure. But I also love trying to think. I love working out, I love going outside. I wish I had a
Mhm.
dog. I have a dog back home, but I think if I had a dog here at school, like, that would really get me out of the house every day.
For someone who hasn't gone to therapy, how would you describe it?
Weird. It's so weird. The first time I went, I was like, "Okay, what" you start talking. Like, it's definitely a weird experience if you haven't had it before, and I was super new to it, and I think the way it's perceived in TV shows is so interesting, but the way, like, it was showed in Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I felt like that was so realistic and so interesting to
Mhm.
watch because he just captured it so well, but I think therapy is an interesting thing and takes some getting used to for sure, and it's not for everybody, but I think it is worth a try if you need to try something out, but I think it's interesting.
Well, I think it's so interesting as well how much therapy is on TV right now. And there's literally
Right.
the show called Shrinking.
Shrink, yeah, of
It's
course.
in Never Have I Ever.
Mhm.
Um, it's in more as well, but like it's Ted Lasso, right? Like
Yeah,
it's therapy didn't exist 5 years ago on screen.
I know. And
So it's
also it, like, didn't exist in conversation either, just in real life, so I think it's moved a lot.
yeah. And if it was on TV or on screen, it was because someone needed
Mhm.
it.
Totally. It wasn't just, like, a normal thing that they had to go through throughout the day. Like you said, in Never Have I Ever, she just goes once a week, and it's totally chill and just part of her. Yeah.
Yeah. I also like in that how much she just word vomits all over her therapist.
Yes, always. She's
I,
she's
I,
such an interesting character. I love her. I love Davy.
yeah. Yeah. It's a great show. There's a lot happening in the world today. How do you balance championing the things that you're passionate about while also building your own dream life?
Ooh, a lot of support. I think having my family and my boyfriend and my very close friends is just so important to me and are very, like, integral parts. Integral? Is that the integral? I don't whatever. They're part of my self-integrity, and I think just always having those people to lean on is so important. My family has always been, like, a number 1 supporter for me and someone I can always lean on, and I think that is pretty rare to find in Asian American households just because a lot of the time they don't support the arts, which is, like, what I've always wanted to pursue head on. Like, my dad wanted to be a rock drummer and was totally banished from the house and, like, had to run away to art school. Like, his life was a movie, but I think I think that is why they are so supportive of me and my brother pursuing the arts, and I'm so, so grateful for that. But I think combating like, just being able to manage everything can be really overwhelming a lot of the time, obviously, and I'm someone who struggles with anxiety constantly, so I think just, like, staying grounded and making sure my people got me, and most importantly, that I have myself and that I'm sure of myself, then I think that
Mhm.
really makes me feel like I'm good.
There's a lot of conversation about anxiety and depression being higher, especially for younger people, than it has in the past.
Yeah.
And some people are saying it's higher because we never talked about it before, so people didn't know what they had.
Mhm.
Other people are saying it's because we know too much with the globalization of social media and then the pressures of social media and what to look like and what perfect is and all the things. Where do you fall on that? Like, do you think it's pushed farther than it may have been because of the state of the world today and what we have access to? Or do you think it's simply that's how it's always been and we just are finally paying attention?
I think it's kind of a mixture of both because I'll see someone like my mom, and I'm like, "That girl has anxiety." Like, we both we but we're so similar that I know that, like, this is a part of her and it's a part of me, but I also definitely think social media has such a huge impact on the way that I perceive myself and that, like, so many other people around me think of themselves. So I think obviously that has a huge, huge impact on it. And aside from depression and anxiety, I think eating and just body image, like, is such a huge thing too with social media that has pushed our anxiety and depression up. That's a whole other thing. I think it's a mixture, but I think the world can be in a scary place currently, so I think I'm in kind of in between on that because I
Yeah.
definitely think a lot of people have been anxious forever. Because how could you not? No one knows what's going on, so I think yeah, between. I'm in between.
So the with the body image
Mhm,
component, there's so many more people who have platforms that aren't the traditional model, but yet there still seems to be so much pressure to be traditional.
mhm,
Like how is that showing up for you? Like
yeah.
where do you find yourself, I don't know, like just being mean to yourself more than you want to?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's something I definitely struggle with on the daily. I think I grew up like I said, I grew up dancing and being in ballet for 12, 13 years of your life is not a good environment, despite, like, how beautiful the art form is and how fulfilling it can be as a dancer. It's just mentally, it is such a difficult and treacherous kinda slope to be on, and
Mhm.
I think when you're a kid, you don't realize it, but after I like I said, not until I started going to therapy was I like, "Oh my gosh, there's some body image issues I have for sure," just regarding, like, you're standing in front of the mirror for 3 hours of the day and just subconsciously analyzing yourself, so I think a lot of that comes into it. Also, with me wanting to be in the entertainment industry, it's all over, so I think
Mhm.
that's where it kind of slips in, and it definitely is, like, a thought loop that I have to get over, and I think a lot of teenage girls I'm not a teenage girl anymore, I wish I was, but I always say I am, but I think just a lot of young women like me feel that way too. So I think I feel less alone in that sense, but I know it's definitely there. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think just women in general, even the most self-loving, happy, accomplished women
Mhm.
are still like really hard graders on
100%.
ourselves. And there's always something that we are looking to improve or change or work on. And I think some of that comes from a healthy place of wanting to expand. And sometimes it comes from an unhealthy place of just not appreciating where things are.
Mhm.
Um, a friend of mine came and did a Powerful Ladies in Person event that included yoga for like body appreciation.
Mhm.
And we did this really incredible journaling exercise where we had to, starting at our toes and working our way up, thank every part of our body.
Mhm.
And everyone started crying at some point because we don't sit there and say like, thank you, thighs,
Mhm.
for walking, running, standing up, like
Every
all the things that our body does for us on a regular basis because we're so mean to it usually.
I know. And this is so interesting because like my boyfriend and I will sit on TikTok next to each other, both on our own phones, just because that's how it is now. Like we call it parallel play, just like sitting next to each other on our own devices. But his TikTok for you page is like the best video game to buy, or like edits of cartoon characters he likes, or like which Spider-Man are you, like stuff like that. And then he's watching my for you page, and it's just all these advertisements and pushing in your face like what makeup product to get, how to style this outfit, what workout routine, like, and he's like, that's what what's catered towards you. It's just so interesting, and it's it's opens a can of worms for sure. But I think, I don't know, I just thought that was an interesting perspective.
I have read a study that it takes 45 minutes on TikTok to move someone from neutral to something extreme.
Interesting. Like
Yeah,
the
like
view.
they were the viewer, yeah, to
Oh,
how it was like showing how quickly you can go from puppies to like neo-Nazi content or from
right, yeah,
puppies to anti-trans and you're like,
yeah.
what is
Where how
going
did I
on?
get here? Yeah.
Right. And they were saying that for people who are like, "Oh, wait, why am I here?" they can get out of it. But for people who are like, "Oh, is this what's happening?" It's like it takes 45 minutes to like really start shifting someone's opinion.
Mhm.
And I'm sure the same applies for feeling confident about
Yeah.
how to dress to getting
Yes.
into, okay, I now need to do 5,000 sit-ups
Mhm.
otherwise and I can't leave the house and we're
Mhm.
burning all my clothes.
Exactly, and I feel like, sometimes I'll get off TikTok and I'm like, "Oh my god, so much time has passed, and now I feel terrible about myself." I'm like, "What do I do
Yeah.
now?"
We usually don't realize it's doom scrolling till after it's done.
Yes. Oh my gosh, and I've been talking with my friends because we're all graduating, like, there's this idea of doom scrolling on LinkedIn, which I think is so funny, but
Really?
yeah, but so real, like, everyone's posting, "I'd like to announce that I got this internship," or "I got this job." It's just such a thing happening around me, and I think it's so funny, but also very real.
Well, I was just talking to somebody else because I think Pinterest and LinkedIn are the two social media platforms that aren't being used enough,
Mm.
particularly by businesses. I'm a business coach and consultant in addition to running Powerful Ladies. And there's so much conversation happening in those two places where everyone's talking about Instagram and TikTok. And nowadays, you need an Instagram like you need a website. Like it just proves that you're a real person.
Right.
But the power of what you can do on LinkedIn is really interesting to me. I've even been joking that I think it's the best place to date instead of a Bumble because you
I
know they
love
have a job, you know who
it.
you know that knows them,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
you know where they live. Like there's it's like way more transparent and
Yeah,
chill than whatever the hell is
I love
happening
that.
on dating apps.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh.
So, as you are preparing to move on to this really exciting next phase of your life, what do you need? What are you wishing for? How can we help? What are you manifesting?
Oh god, I wish I knew. I'm just kidding. What am I manifesting? Oh my god, manifesting a job, but also I think manifesting comfort, like, just comfort in the unknown and feeling okay that I'm only 22. I'm just in my Taylor
Mm.
Swift year. There's lots for me to do. Man, what am I wishing for? Every night, wishing to be a pop star, wishing to be a pop star one day. But yeah, I think just like have the continued support that I have and really like hang on to
Yeah.
those relationships. And I think I'm in a good place with how I believe in myself and where I hope to go with my career. So I just hope to keep having that kind of confidence and belief in myself. I hope that like 4-year-old Toby inside me never goes away and like is always saying like you can do it.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I'm wishing for.
I know that I feel like I'm living my best life when I'm making 8-year-old me proud.
Yes, 100%. Always.
Mhm. For everybody that wants to find you, follow you, support you, where can they do all of those things?
Oh my goodness. If you want to listen to my music, you can find me at Tobey Lynn on wherever you listen to your music, even if you listen on Tidal or Amazon Music, but mostly Spotify and Apple Music. And you can find me on Instagram too at Tobey Lynn and LinkedIn. Just kidding. LinkedIn at Tobey Lynn, but mostly Instagram and Spotify. Oh, and TikTok. I have a TikTok. It's called Who is Tobey Lynn?
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And your White Boy of the Week is premiering next week,
Hopefully,
2 weeks?
hopefully,
Yeah.
fingers crossed. We'll see how that conversation goes. But yeah, it's supposed to be May 11th, my episode 1 and
Okay.
episode 2. Yeah.
Well, I will make a commitment to you now that if for any reason they don't let you release the original version, we can have a premiere that we will plan around one of my happy hours we do once a
Yes.
month.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I would love that.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it has been such a pleasure to meet you and talk to you. Um, I'm just so proud of you for jumping in and being a hell's yes to coming and being on the Powerful Ladies. And I wish women of all ages would be as bold about who they are and what they want and to just be chasing after it. So thank you for being that example. I'm also right here in Orange County, so hopefully you'll come to one of our events soon.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
But really, if anything that you need, questions you have, please come think of me or Powerful Ladies because we make magic happen around here. So take advantage.
Of course. Well, thank you guys for having me.
All the links to connect with Tobey, her music, and all her other creations are in our show notes at thepowerfulladies.com. Subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening and leave us a rating and review. Join us on Instagram at Powerful Ladies, and if you're looking to connect directly with me, visit karaduffy.com. I'll be back next week with a brand new episode. Until then, I hope you're taking on being powerful in your life. Go be awesome and up to something you love.